Frank Trigg, MMAOddsBreaker. Of course, that's Tom Watson. UFC Fight Night coming up here August 16th. We got some time. You know, you're about, 3 weeks out before your fight. Sam Alvey is your opponent. Kind of a weird matchup for me as a fan.
In what way?
Well, you were one of the top guys in the weight class. Like you were like one of the guys up and coming, good brash, powerful punching, great athletic, great cardio system. And you come in and you're suffering from a couple of losses right back to back, but they're not like devastating losses. Your Nick Catone was a split decision, and really, depending on the judging, it could have went either way. I mean, split decisions normally do, but this one even more so.
You mean by any decent judging?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to call
whatever.
out,
I mean, decision is the decision.
The fact that the judges suck, but yeah, I mean, any normal judge that actually understands MMA would have swifted the other way. And then. Thin as light says you lost to a decision, but it's still like you're still one of the better guys out there at the weight class, in my opinion. And then Sam Alvey comes in, and it just seems like a weird matchup to me because you're a big step up in competition for him. He's on a really good win streak right now, but you're looking at where he fought and look at the names. Merchant, Swolford, South, Silva. He lost to Elvis Muchapik in MFC by decision, but it's still like a weird kind of a matchup for you and Sam to be matching up against each other. Like I said, it's a huge step up for him, and it's kind of what does it do for you? Yes, it gets you back on a winning streak, but what does it really do for your career? Fighting Sam Alvey.
Yeah, they've done this before though. When after I fought Tavares in the first fight, when they gave me Nedkov. He hadn't fought a middleweight. He was 12-0, and it was like it doesn't really go along with the UFC matchmaking per se that when you lose a fight, regardless of how you lose, you expect to be matched up with somebody else that's lost a fight, and when you win, you expect somebody else to win so you can progress up. And obviously, fighting a guy, it's his first fight in the UFC, but he's coming off 5 wins, so he's going to have a lot of confidence with him. And I think they've just made the matchup because just how he fights. I think he doesn't really look that technical, but he knocks a lot of people out, and he's very aggressive. He throws very hard, and I think that Joe Silva's probably thought, you know what, maybe I'm a little sick of the split decisions and the wrestling. Let's just put together this fight where, on paper, should be a brawl.
It should be both you guys walking in the middle of the ring, of the cage. And just standing there with your eyes closed, throwing punches till someone falls down. That's the way it should be on paper. But that's not the reality of how actual fights go.
Yeah.
Two really good strikers are going to end up at some point trying to take each other down because you're going to realize once one of you gets hit hard by the other guy, you're going to go to your second plan. Your second plan, obviously, is to start grappling and start wrestling. How do you match up? How do you think you match up with Sam from a grappling wrestling standpoint?
I mean, I haven't watched a great amount of footage from him, to be honest. I never really watched too much go off, coaches. But from what I saw, he doesn't look that easy to take down. He looks like he kind of throws and he sprawls super hard. So, my opinion, wrestling-wise, is you're not going to take him down with a double from the outside. It's going to be more of a repetitive, high-level wrestling, a second takedown, a third takedown, and I think it's actually a pretty good test because, he's never been knocked out. He's had about 30 fights.
Yep.
And, I think he was submitted a couple of times way back in his career, similar to me. So, it's not someone that you can look at and think, oh, he's weak in this area. Even if I do take him down, is he that easy to submit or TKO? Well, according to his record, he's not, All
right, now, you don't watch much film on him, but do you look at the quality of competition? He's fighting guys in Maximum Fighting Championships. You're fighting guys in the UFC. He's fighting guys in the NAFC, and you're fighting guys in the UFC. So, like by default, the guys in the UFC are the better guys to fight, and the names that you've lost to are named guys, and the guys you're beating are named guys. These aren't guys that someone's just pulling out of a hat. And it seems like with Sam, sometimes that he doesn't. The guys he's beating, no one really knows about. Not saying they're not tough. We just don't know about them on a national stage. And the same thing can be said about the guys he loses to. Now that he loses to Elvis Muchapik, and Elvis is a great competitor. and he loses a decision to him. So that's the one fight you kind of look and go, well, it's a named guy, but he loses a very close decision. Everything else you're kind of wondering about, the quality of competition. Do you look at that, even though you don't look at videotape of these guys?
Yeah. Well, yes and no, because, I was in that situation in Bangor, really. I mean, although be it Ninja was a name, everybody said he was finished in his career. And it's outside the UFC, it's difficult to fight that many named guys. So,
right.
all I look at really is everybody he's fought recently. He's found a way to knock him out. I will say, though, that he's knocked him out later in the fight. Generally speaking, bar his stint on the Ultimate Fighter where I think he knocked a guy out fast to get into the house. A lot of his finishes are in the third round, the fourth round. Even some of his Thai boxing fights are the same thing. Fourth round, they're later knockouts.
Well, that's because he comes in great shape and he's always able to push the pace and maintain it. Guys start to fade. My suspect is that you're not gonna fade like most of his opponents do. Come into the later in the third round. You're not going to start to fall apart and start to let your hands down and start to drop. This fight to me is going to be just as strong in the first as it will be in the third. Do you see it going that way as well? And do you see you being able to finish Sam, or do you think it's going to end up going to decision?
Yeah, I think I can finish him. I think I can, I have confidence in myself to finish anybody at middleweight. Particularly the further into my career, most of my finishes have come by a knockout. When I first started, there was more decisions, but I think my last 3 wins are really all by knockout. And even the fights in the UFC, I think although I lost, a couple of those fights that you mentioned, I had improvements that I took away that, all right, I take the Thales Leites fight in Brazil, and I think pretty much the worst thing that could have happened to me was I was getting dominated on the ground for almost 15 minutes and wasn't getting submitted. So, and even maybe 30 seconds, a stand up, I caught him with some big shots. And, I just think, every one of those UFC fights I felt in the fight that a little bit smarter and a little bit more improvement, which I'm making, I easily could have knocked out every one that I fought in the UFC. So.
All right, I'm going to ask you about one more fight. It's actually on the same card. It's Brad Tavares and Tim Boetsch are going to fight a couple fights after you. Of course, you fought Brad Tavares back in 2012. He was your first fight in the UFC. You lost a split decision to him. But now he's fighting Tim Boetsch, who was on a ride for a quick minute. He was knocking guys out, and he's had an up-and-down career as well. How do you think that fight plays out between Brad and Tim?
Boetsch is hit and miss, really. I mean, I look at some of his wins, Yushino, Kami, Lombard. He's got some big wins, but then sometimes he doesn't really turn up. And I'll give Tavares that he just fights very smart. I don't think he takes too many gambles. He's very good at his takedowns in MMA, and his striking is always going to be, he's never really going to get dominated in the stand-up. He's going to be close, and then he'll mix in his takedowns. And I'll probably pick Tavares to win a decision, if I'm honest. In that fight, I just think he probably fights a little bit smarter.
Well, both these guys, they follow the typical UFC matchmaking style where both are coming off losses. They're both mid-level within the weight class, and they're going to, they put them both together to kind of see where both comes out. But obviously, record-wise, Tim Boetsch is 17-7, and Brad Tavares is 12-2. His last loss was to who did he lose to? Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero. And then, but before that, you got to remember, you look at Tim Boetsch, he lost to Philippou, he lost to Munoz, he beats Dalloway, he loses the Rockhold. And so you're right with Boetsch, he's kind of an up and down, and I agree with you. I think Brad wins a long, hard fought decision coming to the end of it.
Yeah.
Your fight, like I said, I think is going to come up in the third round. I think that you're going to end up winning a decision coming in the third round, or getting a finish in the third round, because that's when Sam thinks that most of the guys start to fade. And when you don't fade, and he's not used to seeing a guy that doesn't fade in front of him and doesn't get sloppy and still stays smart, he's going to start getting desperate. So I think in the third round we see a very desperate Sam Alvey trying to jump at Tom Watson, and Tom's going to pick him apart and finish him off. That's my unprofessional, outside-the-box opinion, since I'm not in either one's training camp.
Yeah, well, I'll check if you interview him. I'll see what your opinion is then.
So, you know me, I don't pull any punches. I'm going to say the same thing to him. He's going to be upset.
Yeah.
He's going to be kind of upset when I interview him tomorrow. Because I'm going to tell him the exact same thing. Because that's my opinion. That's my pick on the fight, and that's how it goes. I can't help it. If I think you're going to get beat, doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a great person. In fairness,
you've probably seen most of his fights because you probably commentated on most of those fights, right?
Yeah, yeah, I have.
I haven't really seen. It's different to see someone fight up close than on tape, I think. Particularly when you're a fighter. the same as when you're in there against somebody, you feel different things to necessarily what everybody might see, you know?
When you're sitting cage side and you're watching this guy fight, you can hear his breathing, you can see his mannerisms, you can see the stuff the little nuances in his the little twitch in his hand, the little twitch in his knee before he throws a punch or throws a kick. You don't see on tape because the camera just doesn't pick it up. And then the same thing when you're actually in there with a guy, you're like, oh well, like, you know, he does this before he throws a punch, and you're seeing 5 other things he throws before he throws a punch because the camera never picked it up. And all of a sudden now you have to adjust inside that cage. And that's one of the things that you're good at is you adapt inside. Like, you're very smart about that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Tommy. Well, I know it's you got to get to practice here in a couple more hours. I'll give you that break. Thanks for coming on here to MMA Oddsbreaker. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, no worries, Frank. See you, buddy.